27th August 2021. A boy was standing outside his house ringing the bell for the last 5 minutes. Normally his mom always opened the door early, but today she was taking too much time. For some reason, the boy called her, but his mom did not pick up his call. At that time, he called his father and sister, but again, no one answered his call. Now he started feeling a little nervous, and somehow he broke the door of his house. And after breaking the door, the sight before his eyes was no less than a nightmare. The dead bodies of his mom, dad, sister, and grandmother were lying in the house. These bodies were completely covered in blood, but when he left the house in the morning, everything was fine. So who had done this? Who was that man who hated his joyful family and who had done this? So let's learn more about today's case, which revolves around Abhishek Malik. Abhishek Malik lived with his family in Haryana, India. His family was small, but their love was equally strong. His father, Pradeep Malik, was a property dealer. His mom, Santosh Devi, was a housewife, and sister Neha was 1 year younger than Abhishek. So as I said, Abhishek's father was a property dealer. He was not a small property dealer. He was very popular in his area. His family was one of the richest families because he was such a big property dealer. He had a lot of connections. But in the same way, he had the sum number of enemies. That is why he used to keep bodyguards with him to protect himself and his family. He also kept guns with him, just for their safety. And not only this, he had also taught his family to use guns. He had taught every member of his family to use guns just in case if they ever had to protect themselves in the future. Pradeep used to fulfill all the responsibilities of his family properly, and he used to fulfill all the demands of his children, whether it was celebrating his children's birthday with giving them expensive gifts or spoiling his kids with money and luxurious things. And the lifestyle of his son Abhishek was also similar to some extent. He was only 20 years old, and he used to drink coffee in Starbucks almost every day and purchase expensive clothes from malls. Abhishek also had a younger sister in his house, but everyone in his house loved Abhishek very much because he was the only son of the family. That's why Pradeep was very proud of his children, especially his son. He used to take him everywhere with him. He was very happy to see him with a gun, and he used to flaunt him in front of his friends. Perhaps Pradeep might have felt that his son would grow up and take over his business. But like his father, Abhishek had no interest in property dealing. He was interested in fashion designing. He was interested in wearing stylish clothes. He had participated in many fashion shows and had won many fashion shows. At the same time, he was also interested in the job of cabin crew, and he had also done a course for cabin crew. But he did not get the job of cabin crew. And after the course, he came back home, and after coming back home, and he was now studying Bachelor in Commerce. And his routine was, instead of studying, he often went out for lunch and parties with his friends. On the 27th August 2021, he woke up in the morning, and after having breakfast with his family, he left home at around 11 a.m. to meet his friends. First, he went to a hotel to pick up his friend from there, and both of them went to a restaurant where they had lunch. Then Abhishek went to party with some of his friends, and by 2 p.m. he returned home. And after coming home, he rang the bell of his house, but no one was opening the door. So first he waited for 5 to 10 minutes, but when no one answered him, he first called his mom, and the phone was ringing, but no one was picking up his call. Then he called his father, and then again the same thing happened. Now he started getting nervous. Then he called his sister, but again no one answered his calls. So when no one was answering, after that he called his uncle and told him that no one is opening the door. What should I do? His uncle heard that Abhishek was in a lot of panic, so he suggested him that you should break the door and go inside. And by this time, his uncle had come here from the neighborhood. So somehow Abhishek and his uncle broke the door of their house. But as soon as these people entered inside the house, his soul shuddered. His father's body was lying in the room, and he was no more. He immediately went to check his sister, mother, and grandmother. His mother and grandmother were dead, but his sister was still breathing. So without wasting any time, he immediately took his sister to the hospital. But unfortunately, 2 days later, his sister also died. Within hours, a news spread in the entire neighborhood, and the entire locality had gathered at Abhishek's house. When the police were taking away the dead bodies of Abhishek's family, he was shouting and crying so much. When the bodies of his family were being taken away, Abhishek was crying, and people were trying to control him because his family was killed so brutally that people even found their bodies. Seeing him, they were saying that, "I wish to God that this should not happen to any enemy." But after all, who was this man who hated Abhishek's entire family so much and who thought to kill them so brutally. Now, police were busy in finding out the main culprit, and no one was out of their suspect list, be it her maternal uncle, be it her uncle, be it her rival in her business. One by one, the police started asking everyone, but they did not have any evidence. So it was very important for the police to take Abhishek's statement also, because he was the only one who had interacted with his family for the last time, and he was the last person who had seen his family for the first time after a murder. But when the police were interrogating Abhishek, they noticed a very unusual thing. Abhishek was not behaving like a typical boy at the time of interrogation, and when he was called for questioning for the second time after being interrogated for the first time, when he went, his statement was not matching with his first statement. Hence, the police started having a little doubt about Abhishek. But first, they searched wherever Abhishek had gone on 27th August, and they found out that he was telling the truth, but the police got some more information. The police found out that Abhishek was staying in that hotel since 25th August, and he had returned home only on 27th. So what he had said was that in the morning, after knowing that he had gone to meet his friends in the morning, it was a lie. When the police inquiry in Abhishek's neighborhood, they came to know that there were always fights in Abhishek's house. There were always sounds of shouting coming from his house. And mostly, all these fights, all these voices, it was Abhishek only. There were always fights in Malik's family, and Abhishek was missing from his house for many days. Not just once. Many times, he stayed out of the house for many days. Now, police again call Abhishek for interrogation. Every time, they used to talk to him very softly and lovingly, because they knew this thing, that Abhishek has just lost his family. But if they wanted to know the whole truth, then they had to be strict with him. And they were right, because when Abhishek was interrogated with a little force, he confessed everything. Abhishek confessed that on August 27, 2021, he himself had killed his mom, dad, sister, and grandmother. When police asked him, why did he do this? He said, when he was doing his cabin crew course in Delhi, he met a boy whose name was Karthik. Gradually, they became friends. And Abhishek started having feelings for Karthik, and soon he realized that Karthik also liked Abhishek. And this clearly shows that Abhishek was gay. He already knew a lot about herself, but he did not think that Karthik would also like her in that way. But as soon as this thing came that both of them liked each other, then they both got into a relationship. But after the course was over, Abhishek came back Rohtak and Karthik had gone back to his city. But this did not mean that their relationship had ended. They both used to meet each other often. Mostly Karthik used to come to Rohtak to meet Abhishek. He had also come to Abhishek home several times to meet his parents by telling them that Karthik was his best friend. Karthik's relationship with Abhishek had become so much that even Abhishek's family had become close to him. And many times Karthik stayed in Abhishek's house for weeks. Karthik had come to stay in Abhishek's house, and this thing had become very common for his family too. So they did not disturb the children. But at this time, when Karthik was living in Abhishek's house, his sister had seen Karthik and Abhishek getting intimate, and Neha had told this whole thing to her family, and they were not happy with this thing. Being gay is still seen as a taboo in India, so instead of accepting Abhishek and Karthik's relationship, and even instead of accepting Abhishek the way he was, Abhishek's family felt that their son had gone into a stray. So the first thing they did was that they refused to let Karthik into their house and also stopped Abhishek's contact with Karthik. Then they beat Abhishek a lot and scolded him. They shouted a lot, and they thought that doing this would be enough for them. Now their son is not gay. Our boy has gone a bit astray. If we shout beyond that, then he will go back from gay to straight. Despite this, they used to meet each other quietly. So after beating them so much, Abhishek's father felt that now his son has improved. His son has become straight again, but something else stuck in Abhishek's mind. Now Abhishek and Karthik had made a plan that they would leave India and run away to Europe and start a new life there. However, Karthik also told Abhishek that if he gets his sex change operation done, then both of them can get married. Abhishek had agreed for the operation, but he wanted money around 5 lakhs, so he asked for this money from his father. But Abhishek's parents asked him, "Why do you want 5 lakh?" But the obvious thing was that he could not tell his parents that I want to change my gender. Now he started insisting on money again and again, but without giving any reason, and somehow his parents also found out what Abhishek's plan was with this money. As soon as they found out, they again beat Abhishek, stopped his pocket money, and gave it to her sister Neha, and basically stopped his luxury life in a way. Also, Abhishek's father had given all his property in the name of his daughter Neha. After this, he thought that now his son will be fine. But he forgot that being gay is not a disease, and Abhishek cannot suddenly change his sexual orientation. But now Abhishek's father was fed up, because Abhishek was very close to his grandmother and used to listen her everything. And finally, they called Abhishek's grandmother Roshni Devi so that she could explain well to Abhishek. There was only one thing in Abhishek's mind, that he had to change his gender and marry Karthik. But in the middle of his grand plan, his family was coming. So he thought that if I remove my family members from my path, then I can live my life on my own terms as I want. So on 25th August 2021, Karthik came from Uttarakhand to Rohtak and stayed in the hotel till the morning of 27th, after which Abhishek went to his home. At 10:30 in the morning, he had breakfast with his mom, dad, and grandmother. After breakfast, he went to his sister's room, which was on the first floor. At that time, she was lying in the bed, and Abhishek went straight to her room. The first thing he did was increase speaker volume. Neha did not understand what was happening here, and before she could even understand anything, Abhishek took out the gun and shot Neha in the head. And then he came back down into the house and called his grandmother to his room, saying that he learned to play a new song on the guitar, and he wanted to sing that song to her. So Roshni Devi went to Abhishek's room with him, but as soon as she reached the room, Abhishek fired at her too. The bullet passed through her head, and she died instantly. But even after killing 2 people, Abhishek did not stop here. He again went down to his mom, and when his mom asked him why this sound of singing was coming from upstairs and where is your grandmother, then he indicate that the grandmother is on the upper floor. When Abhishek's mom went to Abhishek's room to see his mother, she saw her mother lying on the floor, covered in blood. As soon as she turned back, she saw Abhishek pointing a gun in his hand. And before she could register anything, Abhishek shot at her too. And now only Abhishek's dad Pradeep was left, and he was sitting in his room using the phone because of the loudness of music. He did not even realize that someone had been murdered in the house. A few minutes later, Abhishek came and sat near him, took out a gun, and within seconds, he shot Pradeep. But Abhishek did not stop there. He shot another bullet at Pradeep. Just to make sure that his father was dead, then he stole some jewelry from the house so that the police would think that there was a theft in the house. After this, he took it out of the house and sitting in his car. He went towards the hotel where Karthik and he were staying for the last 2 days. On the way to the hotel, he threw the gun in a canal. You won't even believe that this is the same boy who came back an hour ago after killing his entire family. He looks so calm and composed. After meeting Karthik, both of them were at a hotel. After which, Abhishek went to a party with some of his friends, and after some time, he dropped Karthik at the hotel. So after getting all these evidences and Abhishek's confession, Abhishek is now currently in jail. But the shocking thing is here that boy whom Abhishek was in love and with whom he was in a relationship, due to which he murdered his family members. Now he is married and he is living happy in his life. With that, Abhishek Malik's case ends here. Before you guys go, like, share, subscribe the video, and comment down below.